Welcome to RuralStrong, where we talk real challenges and bold solutions in rural economic development. I'm your host, Joe Barker. Let's get into it. Welcome to RuralStrong. This is Joe Barker, and we're coming to you today from the Southwest Tennessee Development District podcast studio in lovely Jackson, Tennessee, and we're honored today to have with us Jon Schallert, who is one of the most recognizable names in the destination business arena. Jon, welcome to RuralStrong.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, Jon, I guess the first question, and we'll just jump right into this, is tell the folks out there about your background and how you got into the destination business.
Joe, yeah, my background, I was actually a high school English teacher until we had our second kid and couldn't make ends meet. And somebody said, you need to get into sales. And I ended up with Hallmark cards, working with retailers all over the country. And during that process, the 10 years I was with Hallmark cards, working with all the different places that carried greeting cards, I got to work on a destination store concept. I was one of three people that got to work on this. And they ended up using this to roll out 5,200 retail stores nationwide with this new concept. And I thought, I can teach this to any independent business owner. And so after 10 years with Hallmark, I started my own company and went out. And of course, when you first start out, you're going to all the places that need the most help. And I was going to communities that had huge unemployment, big changes in their marketplace. I was in the places in the West Virginia with coal fields that had closed down, iron foundries that had been shuttered, all sorts of places that were really having tough times. And I'd meet business owners who I'm there to help them, and they'd say to me, you know what, young man, this is nice you're here, but I'm doing already $3 million. And I'd say, well, how are you doing that in a town that's 23% unemployed? And they say, well, if you don't tell anybody around here, I'll tell you the story. And they'd allow me to record them with I used to carry a cassette recorder. I'd record these brilliant people who were sharing these stories with me. And in the course of 3 or 4 years of me doing this, my first year I was in 87 different cities and interviewed 10 to 15 business owners in each city. And in that process, I ended up having these business owners sharing these secrets with me. And it ended up being the kind of thing that, I at first I just thought these were indiscriminate individual success stories. But I actually figured out after a while that these things were repeatable stories. This was a repeatable pattern. And so I figured this out, studied these business owners, interviewed thousands on a yearly basis, and then put it to a process. And that's what I'm the only consultant in the country that teaches this process. And that's what we're going to be bringing to Tennessee. I'm sure you're going to be telling your group about soon here.
Absolutely. And I understand, Jon, that you've been, involved in this endeavor for almost a quarter of a century. So you must have interviewed thousands of business owners and just really visited communities all across the nation.
Yeah, actually, and I passed a quarter of a century, so I'm at 27 years. 27
Well,
years.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And it's I figured out I've spoken in over 600 communities, large and small, a lot of them small, and interviewed over 10,000 business owners in their place of business, which I don't think anybody's ever done. But these business owners, they were so gracious. They shared secrets with me. I remember one lady, I was in a town, they had a median family income of $35,000 per family. It was a rural agricultural community, about 10,000 people. And she was doing $6 million in a building that they bought for $40,000, pulling customers from hundreds of miles away. And I would see these people and business owners who should not be doing millions of dollars in this kind of community, and pick their brains. And, they took a while. The best of them, they had to kind of feel me out and make sure they could trust me. But now, I've got business owners that'll call me up and say, I'm using the techniques you've taught me, the 14-step strategy you've taught me, and I'm doing this. And you can tell anybody in the world about, my sales volume. They don't care so much anymore. They want people to know that this is possible in any community, regardless of the demographics or the size of the community or its location.
Well, John, for those that may be unfamiliar with your work, can you briefly explain what you mean by destination business and why this concept is so important?
See, a destination business it's very simple. It's just a business that's so compellingly unique that a consumer will say, "I've got to go see this place." And every one of us has experienced this with a restaurant or a store of some kind, where we've heard it from somebody that says, "Oh, you got to try this barbecue place," or "You got to go see this place." And when you go there, it's going to be hard to find, and you're going to have to drive all this distance to go get it. And we end up going to these places, seeking them out. They take a long time sometimes to get to. Sometimes they can be in out of the way locations. But every consumer wants to find these places that are secrets, that wants to find these places that are one of a kind, that they can say, "Oh yeah, I saw this amazing place. I went to this amazing store. I went to this amazing doctor." They can be a place, Joe. It doesn't have to be a retail store. It can be a restaurant. It can be a service business like a carpet cleaners. It can be a chiropractor. It can be a lawyer. It can be any consumer-oriented business that uses these techniques, causes a consumer, even if there's lots of competition, to say, "I'm choosing this place and I'm going to this place, or I'm buying from this place." So it's not any particular type of business. It's just any kind of consumer-oriented business that is located in any location that wants to have more business. They can use these principles to become that one of a kind place. I actually had a doctor, an oncologist. She said, "Oh, I get it. You teach people to create go-to places." I said, "What's a go-to place?" She said, "A place you just got to go to." And I thought, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good way to put it."
Well, and I know you go to all types of businesses, John. Does the size of the business make a difference?
Sometimes large businesses actually have a disadvantage. Um, I've seen businesses that are 400 square feet in size that pull people from hundreds of miles away. The size doesn't matter so much. It's this process. It's like a path. I've read some of your things, Joe, because you were a former mayor, where you said communities excel when they have a path. This is a strategy. This is a path that any business can use. And it doesn't mean you have to totally alter your business. You just have to use certain different advantages with consumers. You have to position things so when a consumer hears about you, they say, "I've never heard of a place like that." So size really doesn't matter. There are businesses in real small locations that are real small. What it does do, and this is important to rural communities, what it does do is it creates a way that a local business might have certain disadvantages to compete with anybody. You can compete with online businesses. I've got a business in Minnesota that is a shoe store, and they've got 1,200 square feet, which is not a large size store. But this place sells work and Western boots, and they every day beat Zappos, the largest online shoe retailer in the world. They beat them every single day. A 1,200 square foot store that's at the back of a bar, and it's just amazing. And it's just some of the techniques they've used. They actually have people who will fly into Minneapolis and drive another hour. It's in St. Cloud, Minnesota, called the Boot Shack, and they will work their way there. Country Western stars from Nashville end up flying to Minneapolis because it's the only place in the country they can get boots that fit their size feet. And it's amazing. He's got like a whole wall of country Western stars that make the trek to St. Cloud, Minnesota because of his place.
And I think, John, I know we have several of those types of places in rural West Tennessee that people get off the interstate and drive miles to visit their business. And I know when I travel across the country, John, I'll talk to somebody that I know that maybe lived in that area, and I'm always looking for that unique place. And I know as part of your 14-step strategy, uniqueness is one of the things you talk about.
And what's funny, yeah, I mean, that is the key. Can you get a consumer to say, "I've never heard of a place like that. Wow, I've heard of a lot of restaurants, but never one like that." Or I've been to a lot of retail stores and I do my online shopping, but I've got to see this store because sounds like it's one of a kind. It's all about uniqueness, and the advantages that independent business owners have is that chains and franchises and some of the larger retailers that have multiple locations, they're all based on a principle that they're trying to be brand uniform. They're trying to be the same. You go into McDonald's in any part of the world, you know what a Big Mac's going to taste like. So I mean, and that's great if you want a Big Mac, or you want to have that McDonald's French fry taste. If you know what that is, and you want that, you know exactly where to go. But the thing with an independent business is every independent business owner I've ever met is starts with uniqueness. Their background's unique, what they buy is unique, their location's unique, the type of building they're in's unique, their point of view and their history is unique. All these things, but more times than not, independent business owners don't know how to leverage that uniqueness that is already part of their independent business. And if you do it correctly, the the advantage, Joe, of pulling people from outside your marketplace is we know that on a financial basis, when a customer comes from over 30 minutes away, they will spend more than a local consumer because they've made a trek. They've made a commitment to go a distance. And when they're there, they're going to try to buy as much as they can because they have made that journey. So what happens is an outsider from an outside area, whether it's a tourist or a visitor or somebody who lives 45 minutes away from you, they're in what they spend. Their individual average transaction always exceeds the locals' individual average transaction, which means that communities that use this process will see their actual revenue go up of what people are spending in their local stores.
My family owned a small business for years in a rural community here in West Tennessee, so I certainly have a soft spot in my heart for those small business owners who have to do everything in their business. And I guess my question is there a common misconception that business owners might have about how to attract customers from outside their local market?
You know, one you said a common misperception. One of the things that I find most independent business owners have is they have that belief that if it's going to be done right, I'm going to do it myself. And that kind of perfectionism, that kind of, this is how I got here and I worked my way up this way. And so the only way I'm going to move forward, it's going to be me that makes this happen. Usually that's not correct. There are other people out there in the world now, and all readily available through, the internet and online access, that you can find that can help you excel. And so that's one misconception that I see that doesn't necessarily answer your question on what keeps people coming. A lot of times, business owners think it's going to be something special they buy, and it's not necessarily what they buy, but how they explain to the consumer what they have or what they're offering. And there's there's certain advantages that every independent business has that they often think, oh, that doesn't matter. Everybody around here knows that about me. I remember a dry cleaner once that I had in this little teeny town. I needed to get my suit done. It was kind of an emergency, and I took it into this guy and said, I need this suit back. I got to have it back today. I spilled something on this. I'm speaking tomorrow. And he said, yeah, just come back in an hour and we'll get it for you. And I came back in, and he had a safety pin on the lapel with a $20 bill. And I said, what's this? He said, oh, we found that in your coat. We find money in people's coats all the time, and we just attached it to your suit coat here. And I said, I've had my suit coat cleaned for 40 years. I've never had anybody return that money. He goes, oh, we do this all the time. I said, do you ever tell anybody? Do you ever make this a big deal? He goes, oh, we don't make it a big deal. We find their money and we give it back to them and stuff. But I explained to him, what you've just done is something no regular dry cleaner ever does. And you've stood out in this emergency situation by not charging me more, but giving me more money back than I actually paid. And he was like, well, yeah, we do it all the time. And there's things like that all the time, though, Joe, that business owners do and will do for their local customers, and they never tell anybody about these things, these extra services or these extra benefits that they offer. So sometimes I find their biggest points of uniqueness, they kind of keep a secret because they think everybody already knows it.
Well, and you've illustrated perfectly. I think a forgotten art today is what you've described as customer service. Today, if we go into business, and it may be a dry cleaner, it may be a fast food, whatever it may be, and after you've completed your transaction, somebody at that business actually thanks you for your business. You recognize that because it's said so few times today.
Right. And of course, now when people buy things online, and now artificial intelligence is starting to be the way you have to work your way through customer service. You're seeing more and more people who just want to have a real person who actually cares about them. And independent businesses have that advantage. All they've got to do is be able to teach their people. These are some things that you do all the time with people, like you suggested, thanking them for their order after they've taken.
Sure. All right, let's jump into your 14-step program that you have developed over years to guide businesses, and I know they're all important, but are there 2 or 3 essential steps that businesses must do to become a destination?
There's one, Joe, there's one step that is the most important thing, and it's step 2 in the pyramid. It's a pyramid of 8 strategic steps and then 6 tactical steps that you have to use to get the message out to the world. But the most important step is one singular thing. When you introduce yourself, or when you're building a website, or when you're putting together a flyer, you have to be able to tell people how your business is one of a kind. And you have to do it in a single sentence that basically says, I'm the only business that does this. And business owners, it's a really simple concept. Tell me how your business is one of a kind and why I should care. And what I want you to do when you tell a person that, you want to lead with your strengths. So, for example, when I go to National Speakers Association conventions, they actually have conventions for professional speakers. There's 4,500 national speakers that will come together at a convention, at a big convention hall once a year. Excuse me. And what we find is that a professional speaker will say, well, I'm a motivational speaker, or I'm an inspirational speaker, or I speak on change, or I speak on sales strategies, something like that. Well, when I meet other speakers, what I'll say to them is, I'm the only professional speaker that teaches businesses and communities how to be a destination. And they'll say to me, You do what?
What?
And and right at that moment where they realize this guy's the only one that does this, that's when you get people's attention. Now every business has to be able to do that too. Every business has to be able to take that to their advantage and be able to explain that. And business owners say to me, well, how do I do that? I give good customer service. I give great product knowledge. I have good selection. I have great prices. Well, all those generalities that uh, business owners will naturally say, everybody says the same stuff. You've got to be able to give them and say to them, this is why you should care about me and why you should make the trip to come see me in a really simple term. That's probably the one thing that most business owners have trouble figuring out. They have trouble putting that into words. They just get overwhelmed, and it's a really simple process to come up with what I call your unique positioning statement.
Okay, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about a special program you've worked with the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development. But for our listeners outside the state of Tennessee, tell them about your destination boot camp. I know normally it's I believe, a 2.5 day program. Talk about the boot camp.
So the 14-step strategy I teach, I'm the only one that teaches it. It's a 2.5 day process to go through all of those 14 different stages. And so business owners from around the world come to Colorado. It was where we have typically only done the class in Colorado. They'll come to Colorado and they'll be in a room full of people, usually 20 to 40 people. And they will go through this class where I go through every one of those singular points. Now in Kingsport, Tennessee, in September 17th, they're having me come do a speech about this destination strategy, and they're having me speak at the governor's conference there for 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes, I can give them just kind of a quick overview and not go into any detail. But at the destination boot camp, we actually go into detail. People can ask me questions, go into depth. And when they come to Colorado for that class, the class costs $1,600 to attend the class, and that doesn't count your travel, and that doesn't count your food, and that doesn't count your hotel. All that stuff's extra. So, for a business owner to come to Colorado, it's usually $2,500 to $3,000 for them to come to the class. And so the state of Tennessee said to me, the rural tourism group, they sent a person to Colorado to attend that class. And they came up to me and said, we want to do this in Tennessee. And I said, well, we don't do this in Tennessee. We only do it in Colorado. And they said, well, we got a different idea. What we want to do is we want to run up to 300 business owners through this course. We want to if it's a husband and wife team that own a retail store, we want both of them to attend, and we want both of them to attend for free. And so I said, well, it would take all these things for us to do this, because we do this class, we do all sorts of things you never see at any other workshop. And they said, okay, we can do that. And so in the end of September, I'm in Cookeville for 3 days, 2.5 days. And middle of October 14th, 15th, and 16th, I'm in Jackson, your area.
And we're looking forward to that.
Yep. And then on November 4th, 5th, and 6th, I'm in, 5th, 6th, and 7th, I'm in Farragut, east of Knoxville, I believe it is.
Absolutely.
And so those three communities all have this opportunity to get a free scholarship to the class, to be right in their own backyard, and to go through the same training that people are paying $2,000 and $3,000 to come to Colorado to take. The state of Tennessee is the only state that's ever done this. It's the only one that's ever thought of this. I've taught this class for 22 years, and nobody's ever come up to me and said, we want to do this really out of the box thing, and we want to make it available to all of these business owners that really need to be there. So yeah, it's a one of a kind thing. It's challenging us because instead of having 20 or 40 people in a class. We potentially could have 100 people in a class. And we're designing our manuals, and we're going to ship all the stuff that we usually do in Colorado. We're going to ship it out to these 3 locations in Tennessee. And we're still doing our class in Colorado at the end of third week in October. But then right after that, we're going to go on this 3-city Tennessee tour and spend a lot of time in your state educating a lot of business owners.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to you being here. And your class in Colorado, how often do you do that?
We only do it once a year.
Once a year. Okay.
Yeah, once a year we do the class, and because it takes a lot of work, and we get business owners from all around the world that came in. We had a guy one time flew in from Australia. We had somebody come in from Nova Scotia, an island outside of Newfoundland, Canada. We've had everybody from business owners from every state in the union except North Dakota, and I don't know why, but that's nobody from North Dakota ever comes to our class. So but we've had business owners in Tennessee who've come to Colorado, but this is the first time that it's going to be right in everybody's backyard.
Okay, with the 3 programs you're doing in Tennessee, and when someone, after the 2.5 days, walks out of this boot camp training, what's your goal when they walk out that day?
Well, what we want them to do is be able to walk out, and not only are they going to learn a new strategy, but one of the things we give them is we say to them, this is what you do, and this is the order in which you'll do it. So they know exactly what they have to tackle first, and they know exactly when they get back to their business, and of course, they're going to have to be gone from their business for a couple of days. When they get back, they're going to have all these things that are going to fly at them. We've got tools that let them stay on course. And then the state of Tennessee, what they did is they said, you know what, we don't want our people just to have a one-shot thing. So come December, January, February, March, April, and May into June of 2026, there's going to be online consulting and online training that are available for those people who have gone through that class, which has never been done before by any state. So this is really a one of a kind thing that like I told you, at first I said, no, we don't do that. And then they said, well, we really want you to do it. And they came back and said, we'll get rid of all the barriers for you. You just come and teach this. And so we're going to do that.
Okay, before we leave, John, give the folks maybe your website that they can go and get a little more information about the Destination Boot Camp.
Yeah, it's a simple address, just Destination Bootcamp, BOOTCAMP.com, destinationbootcamp.com. They can read about the class. They can read about what they're going to learn. It's going to have the dates in Colorado. It won't have the Tennessee dates. Those are being promoted locally by the state tourism group. But they can read about what they'll learn. We've got a curriculum that if people email me at Jon@destinationbootcamp.com, and it's Jon is my first name. So Jon @destinationbootcamp.com. If they email me, Joe, I'll send them a curriculum of what they can expect to learn and the order of the class and all the books we're going to share with them and all of that stuff.
And I'm sure in Tennessee, you can go on the state website for the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development and get more information. If you happen to be in the West Tennessee area, and John mentioned one of these boot camps will be here in Jackson, you can contact us at Southwest Tennessee Development District. We have all the information here, and would be glad to talk to you about it, because this is an exciting time, and I won't tell you, folks, I've heard John at some different conferences give keynote addresses. He is the best in the business at what he does, and John, I appreciate so much you taking the time to be with us on Rural Strong.
Oh, I know you could have picked a lot of people. Thanks for choosing me to come on with you.
And I want to remind everyone, we appreciate your comments, or if you have a question, and any question about what we've talked about today, you can email us at ruralstrong@gmail.com. This is Joe Barker with Jon Schallert. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for joining us on RuralStrong. If you found this helpful, share it and follow the show for more insights from rural leaders making a real difference. Until next time, stay rural strong.